Peace and love. I'm Nielle,
And I'm Stacy.
and we're your hosts of the Black Press USA's morning show, Let It Be Known. We're here at the Smithsonian African American Culture and History Museum to find out how folks are feeling about the Trump administration possibly removing the bottom two floors, which cover the slave trade,
Slavery, Emmett Till,
right, civil rights,
yeah,
black
Reconstruction.
codes, all of the things that are a part of American history.
What will be lost if it goes away?
I remember as a child seeing Ebony and Jet magazines on our coffee tables growing up. And my first job out of college was working at Johnson Publishing Company in Chicago. And the vision that at that time was to make images that were readily visible in a Life magazine, a main American periodical. African Americans didn't have that. So Johnson Publishing Company built that history, and they held so much of our history from Emmett Till to any goings and comings of blacks in America. And for those libraries to be preserved and acquired by the Smithsonian is important. And for the Smithsonian of African American History to continue to acquire our history is very important, because if we don't maintain our history and its record and its richness, then how will anyone else respect it?
Well, good morning and welcome to the Black Press of America's Let It Be Known. It is the premier morning show for the Black Press. All right. Can you hear me, Nielle? I think Nielle's freezing up. I thought it was me. Somebody's frozen up. So we'll figure this out. Are we okay over there? Okay, so um okay, Nielle is we're not hearing Nielle at all right now. So anyway, welcome to the show as Neil gets it together. Um, it is certainly again, look into the museum, the um, African American, Smithsonian's African American African American Museum of History and Culture. It's interesting too because I just saw another report about this. They are definitely working toward uh, ridding us of this, history that we know exists, that we need to continue to build upon. Um, and there's that article I was referring to. This individual, Lindsay Halligan, um, told Trump that the Smithsonian needed changing, and now
Wow.
he's ordered her to do just that. And part of that is, of course, a big part of that is the African American Museum. So
I
I,
mean, there's so many stories, so many different perspectives that we got when we were at the museum last week. But at the end of the day, the consensus was that Black history is American history, no matter how horrific or uncomfortable it makes white folks. We even talked to some white folks, but they agree it's horrific. They may be embarrassed by it, but it's still a part of the story of Americans in this country. And you can't have America without Black folks.
what I don't understand, okay, is you say, and I've heard that a lot of people, and I've even thought, well, embarrassment is probably one of the reasons, but it goes a lot deeper than embarrassment, right? It has to. I mean, this is you walk in that museum and you say you want to get rid of it. That's pure hate. It's pure hate. It's not embarrassment. It's hate. I mean, I don't see. She said, I don't see anything else other than it has to be. We talked, like you said, we talked to white folks as well, and they were very explicit too. Like, this is American history. How do you get rid of it? The answer lies in hate. Has to be. What do you guys think? Racism is hate,
Right.
and I don't think, and to be quite honest, I don't think all racists want to get rid of the museum. I think some of them celebrate what they see in that basement and hold on to it, hold dear to it. There's a lot of hate here.
Yeah. They just don't want it to be told from any perspective except theirs, and their narrative. And that's just not truth. That's not grounded in truth. It's grounded in, a warped concept of what white folks think America should be, to those people that you're talking about. And so that's why it's so important. And we hope that our Black leadership, and we got some good old white allies that will help preserve and protect this museum.
Yeah, Mike V says because book burning is usually a precursor to catastrophic events later. And David
For sure.
Youngblood says we will not allow them to close any part of the museum, and their view of our history will not prevail in that building. It will tell our story as we see fit. And Inferno 932 says we've watched the attack on teachers, the attack on education, and the attacks on history, and all that is very true. And it's just going to be very interesting to see who stands up here, how this is going to happen. Look, a lesson can be taken from Harvard University. They have not only stood up, but they are fighting. A lesson can be taken from what we've seen with Jamal Bryant in the Target Fast, stood up, fighting, and up until recently, as far as we know, up until a few days ago, Target was trying not to fly under the radar with us, and then they finally reached out to meet with some black folks. So those are the blueprints.
Yes. They're muddy blueprints, but they're blueprints.
David says, "What exactly is that attorney hologram once removed? What is her objection specifically?" Right. And what they continue to say is that um, they want essentially to um, not demonize people for past actions. And I don't think this is what that museum, this is not what history does. History, actually, maybe it does. But history, what it does is this tells you what happened. This is not putting any, that museum is not putting anything extra on it. In fact, you can argue that some details are probably withheld. Some of the more, um, you know, horrific details. I mean, it's horrific enough,
I mean, and,
but
and and there are horrific details. I think that it's not. I think that the story is told. Whether
yeah,
you
there it
like it
is
or
right
not,
there.
it's not an ideology.
Hmm.
It's not an ideology. It's facts. It's
Right.
truth. You know what I mean? It's not something that people put in a book and want you to interpret it by, a belief system. It is the truth. Those things
Hmm.
actually happened.
Well, here's what she says, and Greer's. This is great. Oh gosh, could you put it back up, Greer? Because she does make a statement there. I would say that improper ideology would be weaponizing history. She says we don't need to overemphasize the negative to teach people that certain aspects of our nation's history may have been bad. That overemphasis just makes us grow further and further apart. No, no, absolutely not.
There's
She
no
says she
emphasis
talked to the
at the
president about
museum.
it.
That's the funny
Yeah.
part. That's the funny part. There's no overemphasis. It's just a telling of the story. You start from the bottom and you go all the way up and around to the story of Black folks in America. I mean, that's it. You get to the greatness, you get to the nice stuff, you get to the celebration of excellence when you get to the top. We see, the contributions of Black people, but at the same time, what happened at the bottom is factual and it's truth and it's important.
Well, I think Inferno 932 hit the nail on the head. He says their children are learning empathy and sympathy for others. So, and they have a problem with that. They have a major problem with that. Um, but we'll continue to bring you the history, American history, which is Black history. We're going to continue to do that. Thus, our visit last week to the museum. This morning, Shannon Sharp is going on the offensive. He was sued on Sunday for sexual assault, battery, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. He's fired back. His lawyer has issued a statement characterizing the civil suit as blatant and cynical attempt to shake down Sharp for millions of dollars. Of course, folks, there is absolutely no surprise that his attorney is none other than Tony Busby. Yes, the Tony Busby who has brought countless numbers of lawsuits against people like Diddy and those false claims against Jay-Z that has Jay-Z and others investigating him. But apparently, and this is a Jane Doe suit. We remember a few months ago where somehow this recording of Shannon Sharp was leaked, a very private recording of him with a woman called Michelle, I guess. And apparently,
Right.
now we don't have 100% proof of this, but apparently this is the woman. And she talks about violating the privacy. And one of the reasons why some like myself have concluded that this might be her is because he mentions here that because of that Instagram thing, he kept apologizing to this Jane Doe, and she ultimately she wants the bag.
Right, right. Yeah, Tony Busby is actually the one that filed the lawsuit against Shannon Sharp on behalf of this woman. And I mean, he doesn't have a really good track record, so that works into Shannon Sharp's favor. And I just think that the way the media does now is that we don't we don't approach stories as somebody's innocent until proven guilty. We put out this salacious information, particularly right now, about Black men, and it travels and it spreads, and it's not whether he's guilty or not, it's just this stain against his reputation. And I just think that whether they do it or not, court is, that's due process. You have the right to be innocent until proven guilty. And I think the approach that the media is taking now is very harmful and detrimental to men. I mean, and I'm saying it, and I'm a woman. It's just, it's not fair. And
It
for
is
Tony
the
Busby to get that
Mhm.
headline it's wild.
It is exactly what we were saying throughout the Me Too movement. The Me Too movement was something that really was such a great idea, a great tool, a great. It was about time that folks were going to stand up for women being sexually harassed and assaulted in the workplace. Well, it was hijacked and co-opted and everything else by Hollywood, and it turned into just what you described. This idea that just because a man was accused meant he was guilty, and that's not what the Constitution says. It's not what the justice system is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about proving guilty. You're supposed to be
Innocent.
presumed to be innocent before anything else. But uh, a couple of I'm laughing because there's a couple of comments that I can't disagree with. For instance, I saw what Dr. Marilyn wrote. She says, although I don't care for Sharp, this sounds suspect. Why no police reports? Nancy Wall says Shannon thought he was sexy, but this might bite him now. And Dr. Joni brings up a very important point. A lot of domestic violence isn't linear, and Dr. Joni also says, in the same way, powerful men with lots of money can take the narrative and keep the abuse silent. It goes both ways. Um, so yeah, you're gonna get a whole range of thoughts on that. I don't, I don't know this situation. All I know is that Shannon Sharp's team. First, we do know that Tony Busby is very suspect, as you said. Um, and the second part of this is we know that Shannon Sharp's legal team put out a whole bunch of emails between the two, purportedly between Shannon and the Jane Doe here, and it does not look good if you are trying to sue somebody, um, and you have been in this relationship, and this is based on the emails, because perhaps there are emails and text messages that haven't been released that could show something different, a very sinister Shannon Sharp. It could show. We don't know if they exist or
Yeah,
not,
but if the attorneys, if the attorneys' approach to the case is to go to the media, like, you file the court papers, you get through it. But if your objective is to, slander a person, I mean, that's sleazy to me. But I know Shannon Sharp probably regrets, if he thought it was a joke, if he put that video out there thinking it was a joke
hmm
and to get him attention, I bet you he has some regrets now, because now, and I also think that if they're gonna put it out there that way, then she shouldn't be allowed to be a Jane Doe. We should know who she is. We should
well,
be
and that's
able
what I.
to see
hmm
who she
hmm
is.
Well, see, that's the double-edged sword of this. You had said that, basically them putting it out there, um, it was wild that they put it out there. But when you're going up against a Jane Doe or John Doe, and Shannon's a public figure, Shannon relies on the public to make money. His livelihood is at stake. So he has to,
Right.
they have to defend him in the court of public opinion as well. Um, I've always said that when these allegations are made and they are made by anonymous folks, then the alleged perpetrator deserves that same anonymity. Um, because again, the law says innocent until proven guilty. So at the same time, I know it's a long argument. We can go back and forth, because a sexual assault victim, you don't want to, and we don't do it, and even many in mainstream don't do it. We don't put their names out there, because they are, uh, victims of horrific crimes, and you just don't want to exploit them in that way. So it's a funny thing here that you got to deal with, a really tricky thing, I should say, that you have to deal with.
Yeah, but I think the difference is, like, if you want to remain a Jane Doe, then keep the information in the courts. When you
hmm
decide to publicly announce what you're doing and you want to send it to the TMZs, the shade rooms, the neighborhood talks, you want to put it on the wire, you want to put it out there, then you should be accountable and your name should be released. Now, if you do it through the courts and the proper channels and you keep it there because you're seeking justice, then okay, I get that. But when you take this route, like, it's Monday, we gonna hit them on Monday and we gonna put it out there. And you know what I mean? It's just like, come on. There has to be some types of checks and balances. And it's not to protect the male, but it's
hmm
also for fairness. It's not, I don't think it's fair to do things this way. And then you could be held, oh, I'm gonna be Jane Doe. I don't want my name out there.
Well, again, too, that so an argument, I agree with you, but an argument could be made the other way too, because I used to cover courts, and a good court reporter is digging through the files every day looking for stuff like this, looking for.
Right. And
It may not
yeah.
be that the alleged victim or the alleged perpetrator sent this to TMZ or whatever. In this case, this was what happened. You put Tony
Yeah,
Busby
that's what
there,
I'm saying. We
whatever.
know
But
the type of
right, we
attorney
know.
Tony Busby is.
Right. And
Well,
so,
it's
but you can
we know.
find these things. You know, a good court reporter can find these things. I covered court, so I know. I used to find some of this stuff myself. But um, Dr. Marilyn said, "When will these black men learn? Stop messing with these white women?" I have no doubt this was one. And based on the text messages, we can we can conclude with almost certainty that she was white because she kept talking about wanting to have a
Yeah.
black baby. So. Um,
Hmm.
so we can probably conclude that she well at least she's not black. Put it that way. And she says why 50 million? That's a good question too. Why 50 million? Why that number? It seems so odd. Seems random. So we'll see. But anyway, moving on. Tens of thousands of Americans could soon lose critical rental support under the federal emergency housing vouchers program, with funding expected to run out by the end of this year unless Congress intervenes. And that does not seem possible. The U.S. Department of HUD has warned in a letter that no additional funding is likely forthcoming. This could lead to mass evictions, folks, of nearly 60,000 families and individuals, many of whom have escaped homelessness, domestic abuse, or human trafficking. And this voucher program, the Emergency Housing Voucher Program, was created in 2021 as part of President Biden's pandemic era American Rescue Plan, and they were allocated $5 billion to provide this rental assistance. And the thing about it is, again, you know, President Trump has made it a mission to dismantle the American Rescue Plan, which is benefiting Americans.
Right. Yeah, they are really narrowing down, and the rubber is really about to meet the road. I know here in Los Angeles, um, the city of LA just closed our affordable housing department. And I know a couple of commissioners, and they got their letters saying that their services would no longer be needed. Now, I don't know. I mean, I think it's definitely indirectly impacted by this, but it has to do with the money that has come up missing for the housing here in LA. But it definitely is a direct connection. And then we saw yesterday that the Trump administration put out the information about student loans, and that they're telling people like by May 5th or starting in May, your checks could be garnished.
Hmm.
And you have this happening with the housing, it is it might be a very hot and depressing summer for a lot of Americans because of the Trump Klan administration.
Yeah, and Mike V points out that this also hurts his own base as well, and that's the thing with this administration. Apparently, even their own base doesn't matter to them. They are trampling over everybody. This is a no holds barred. If you're not a billionaire, you are just SOL, as they say.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's just cruel. It's like what this
It
Trump
is.
Klan administration is doing is just cruel.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's extremely cruel. Um, Here's something else, Neil, I wanted to throw at before our guests come on, throw out there. And I want to know what how folks feel about this. Colin Kaepernick is still seeking to return to the NFL. It's been a decade since he was uh, blackballed from the league for kneeling during the national anthem. His girlfriend told a radio and TV host that Kaepernick, who's now 37 years old, still has his dream of returning to the NFL. She says it's all up to the teams if they'll let him play. Um, when asked if Colin is still training, she says all day, every day, nothing has changed, nothing. Now he was offered
Hmm.
a um, coaching job with the Los Angeles Chargers as an assistant coach, but he turned that down. He wants to play. Folks? How do you feel about that, Neil? I know you follow sports out there in California for sure. What's is there a buzz about this at all? I mean, what are your thoughts on him still wanting to play?
We are. I mean, I think they're trolling the NFL. I think they're trolling the NFL. I just think that's what it is. I mean, Colin Kaepernick is at the age now where a lot of people retire. I mean, he hasn't been on the court. I think it's just a trolling tactic, and as they should, because he never should have been taken out of the NFL, especially when we see all of the things that's happening right now. So I think it's just a troll tactic, you know,
Mm,
a
yeah.
stain
It,
on the
it,
NFL that they can't get rid of, and he's not going to give them the opportunity to forget about it.
that's a great explanation. Wow. Okay, I could buy that. David Youngblood said, "I'd love to see him back out there." And Inferno 932 says, "I haven't watched the NFL since learning of the banning, so they they have lost a fan and probably a lot more." Um, yeah, and it is a clear case of collusion by the owners, which is interesting, David, because um, years ago, I think it was the 80s, when Major League Baseball owners were hit with multi billions in penalties, or it was hundreds of millions, I should say, not billions, for colluding on free agents and not signing free agents. I think it was around 1987, and that's the year, in fact, where Andre Dawson, who went on to win MVP and was just a beast, couldn't find a team, and then went to Chicago Cubs and said, "Hey, look, pay me what you want to pay me," and they gave him a $500,000. So, uh, and then they was later found, and they had to pay all these players hundreds of millions of dollars in total. So it's interesting that the NFL is appears to be getting away with this. We'll see if someone comes along and maybe file the same type of action against the NFL. So
Mm. But I'd love to see him back. But that ain't going.
yeah.
This what it
Well,
is.
I think
But I guess we
also
can move.
I'm sorry, but real quick, I think RNG makes a great point too. He says if Cap was playing another position, the NFL would welcome him back. The quarterback position is the face of the franchise, and it is reserved for mainly white men, and of course, MAGA men like the boy in Kansas City. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think Jalen Hurts changed that, right? It's Jalen Hurts from the Eagles. That's
That's
the
right.
quarterback for the Eagles. Yeah,
That's
he's
right.
the champion. Okay, he's changing
That's
that.
right.
Mm. What'll be interesting to see is if he goes to the White House with the team, or if the team goes to the White House. That's still
Yeah.
open. We'll see.
Yep.
We'll see. Uh, okay, so let's jump into this next story. So the Target Gate. We're going to call it Target
Target
Boycott
Gate.
Gate, right? Yeah, Target Gate. So it's so much surrounding this story from, as of recent, we know Al met with the CEO of Target. Missing from the table was Jamal Bryant, Pastor
Wait,
Jamal
but he
Bryant,
said he was
and
there.
I'm
Jamal
not wait,
Bryant did.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm getting there. And so, missing from the table from the picture that was released was Jamal Bryant. Then Reverend Al Sharpling quick responded and said, "Oh no, he was there. We still haven't seen the picture." And it's still unclear if Pastor Jamal Bryant is confirming or denying. But what we do know, as of yesterday, Nina Turner, Tamika Mallory, and Pastor Jamal Bryant announced a Target boycott organizing committee. So, Stacy, our next guest is going to add some more conversation and texture and depth to this conversation. So, joining us now is Nakima Levy Armstrong. She's a civil rights attorney and founder of Racial Justice Network. We have Jelani Hassan. She's the executive director of the Minnesota chapter of the Council of Islamic American Relations, and Monique Colors Doty, co-founder of BLM Minnesota. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you for
Good
having
morning.
me.
And it
Yes.
just it seems like they ready too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is so important because this Target boycott, fast, whatever you want to call it, is definitely making impact on our country. But it's definitely important for us to identify, where it evolved from. And I've always asked Stacy, why Target? Why Target? And so Nakima, I want to start with you. and tell us what happened back at the end of January and how this boycott all came to be.
So at the end of January, we found out, like the rest of the country, that Target had made a decision to roll back its focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Mind you, this wasn't even 1 week into the Trump administration. And this announcement was made shortly after Donald Trump decided to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion within the federal government by asking employees to identify folks who are working on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and knowing that those people would likely be set up to be fired. And so, as a result of that, what we decided to do was to launch a Target boycott that would begin on February 1st to coincide with Black History Month. So after connecting with folks here, we sent out a press release at the end of January, and then we held a press conference on January 27th, I believe, calling for a nationwide boycott of Target stores. And part of why we decided to focus on Target is the fact that Target is a Minnesota-based company. Target witnessed the issues regarding police accountability in the Minneapolis Police Department before, during, and after George Floyd. Target employees were impacted by the uprising that happened after George Floyd was killed. And what we saw in 2021 was Target making a commitment, being a corporate leader, in saying that they were going to pledge $2 billion towards putting more Black brands on the shelves, improving the Black customer experience, as well as focusing on hiring and promotions of Black folks, and increasing and improving their supplier diversity networks. And so we thought that that was a great thing that Target did, and pledging the $2 billion and specifying various areas that they would focus on that had to do with uplifting African-American businesses and African-American customers, as well as employees. So we figured once Target made that decision, that we weren't going to let Target get away with that, given that Target is right in our backyard. And we were the folks who helped lead the focus on justice for George Floyd here in the Twin Cities, along with many other stolen lives. And so it was through that process that we decided to do this. And then what happened after that is that I was contacted by some folks who wanted to connect around the Target boycott, asking me to join a national coalition on behalf of us here in the Twin Cities, which I did. And in that coalition included Jamal Bryant, Nina Turner, and Tamika Mallory, and some of the other folks that they worked with. I was there along with another lawyer, from this, who works in this community. And basically we approached that situation in good faith. And I wound up having to walk away from that coalition when I realized that there was confusion, in terms of the fact that we had launched this boycott on February 1st. And then suddenly there's something happening in March, which became the Target Fast. And, our efforts were essentially lost, in the midst of that. They were erased, which is really unfortunate. And so now we're here.
It's interesting.
And so, wait, Stacey,
go
I
ahead.
just want to make some clarity. And so I think it's important to note that the Target headquarters is less than 3 miles from where George Floyd was murdered by Derek Chauvin. And I also want to know, you talk about the coalition and partnering with Nina Turner, Tamika Mallory, and Jamal Bryant. And what were your requirements or asks from Target? And did they use some of your asks from your report and add it with the fast?
Yes, two of our asks was number one for Target to roll back its decision to roll back diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we wanted Target to reverse course. We also wanted Target to be accountable for the $2 billion that they pledged in the aftermath of George Floyd being killed by the Minneapolis Police Department. And so those were two of our demands that are also apparently included on the targetfast.org website.
So it's interesting. All of our guests this morning, I want to ask this question because Al Sharpton, by his own admission, has said that he has not participated in a boycott yet of Target, and yet Target, according to all reports and according to Sharpton himself, reached out to him. Why? And I want to hear from each of you on this. Why do you believe they reached out to Al Sharpton?
I don't see my comrades. Are they still on?
Yeah, I'm looking for your comrades as well because I
Okay, there
want
they
to
are.
hear from each of them on the reason that you guys believe, individually or collectively, why did Target reach out to somebody who had at that juncture and by his own admission, no dog in the fight?
Well, I'll step in first. Thank you for having us this morning. Um, I think it's partially because of the success of this boycott so far. This boycott has been successful. We have seen the foot traffic of Target go down. They've lost 30% of their share. And we believe that we're just getting started to significantly show that Black people in this country are not going to perpetuate in supporting a company like Target. And as Nakima mentioned, Target is a company right after the murder of George Floyd that came out publicly and had really used Black people in an effort to say, we are going to be your best allies in this fight. And most importantly, we're going to lean in and invest in Black businesses, among other things. So the betrayal of Target is really deep in the community because it's one of those companies that showed that it was going to do the right thing. And without really any significant pressure from the Trump administration, they were willing to signal not only to uh, shoppers of Target, but other companies that they're willing to push back against DEI. And so I think, and second point, which is I think most people probably can figure this one out, is that Target understands the old game of divide and conquer. You have to continuously to try to divide the Black community in any way possible to try to figure out a way to present this boycott. If it was not successful, they would have not reached out to anybody. This boycott is successful. I want to thank the countless folks who are listening to us today who have boycotted Target, and for the many deniers, and maybe it's those people who have been waiting on the fences. This is your opportunity to really lean in, to show this company and other companies that, dollar diplomacy matters. We don't have to invest in our own oppression. We have survived without Target for the last few months. We've realized that our dollar goes in other places, and we can continue to support even local businesses. And so I think partially it's the success, and it's the old game of divide and conquer with our community, and we're not going to let that happen at all.
Okay, so divide and conquer, Jelani, Monique, your thoughts on why they reached out to, as I said, Sharpton himself said, I'm not boycotting. He doesn't have a dog in the fight. Why him and not you? Why him and not Nakima? Why him and not Jelani? Why him and not Jamal Bryant? You're on mute, Monique.
Sorry about that. I believe that Target made a Hail Mary pass, hoping that Reverend Sharpton would catch the ball and run with it on their behalf and score a touchdown in the boycott. But we know that's not even his capacity. We started the boycott here. We are the boots on the ground activists in the community who experienced the trauma of the murder of George Floyd on another level from the rest of the country. Target knows this and understands this. We're not ending this boycott. Our boycott was indefinite. We have demands, and we also are adding to this because we are local activists. We know Free Mighty Ali campaign. So there's more that's underneath this. We just scratched the surface of the issues with Target. We were going to bring in the Target surveillance, the funding of Target funding the Hennepin County prosecutor's office when Amy Klobuchar was Hennepin County prosecutor, as well as Mike Freeman. Mike Freeman was the Hennepin County prosecutor when George Floyd was murdered. And because he said, I do not see a chargeable offense after watching the video, that's when the Twin Cities went up in flames, right? So we have a lot more to fight for in this. And so while we see Target trying to leapfrog across the local activists right here who started it, we're not concerned because we know that we have our course and our plan laid out, and God is before us. Allah is before us. So there's more at stake here, and we are really, really moving forward. I'm a member of the Free Mahdi Ali group, and our group, our Target Boycott, we are taking this project also under our wing, right? I have a lot of information on this. I'd be happy to share with you, but Mahdi Ali is a victim of Target funding the Hennepin County Prosecutor's Office based on prosecutions. So when Amy Klobuchar and Mike Freeman were prosecutors, the incarceration rate for Black men and boys rose by 600%. That was particularly under Amy Klobuchar, but it was Mike Freeman who was rubber stamping the appeals to agree with the outcome that Amy Klobuchar had come up with. So we are also those of the activists who took over Amy Klobuchar's stage when she brought her presidential campaign here back home to Minnesota. And we took over that stage, and then consequently, she suspended her campaign for presidency. So there's a lot more here. This is like an onion with many layers to peel. So we are getting that out. And it's so much important. There's so much more, and we only know that because we are right here. We are right here. We are the ones who truly fought and put our bodies on the line for George Floyd's justice. We were kettled on the freeway for up to like 8 hours in a protest where we're calling out justice for George Floyd, as well as Stop the Steal with the Donald Trump reelection. So we've been here. We were out, during the fires. I'm from St. Paul. I'm watching St. Paul, my community, burn up, like University Avenue is burning down. Minneapolis, it's on fire. We had to live with the aftermath of that. The business owners, people lost their businesses, things were looted. We were seriously impacted. There are people who could not get medications because the local drugstore was looted and burnt down. And this is part of what Target had funded the Hennepin County Prosecutor's Office. Also, the work that they do in collaboration with the Minneapolis Police Department, their crime lab, their crime experts, of which two of Target's experts testified in the Mahdi Ali case wrongfully. So there's more here, and Target needs to take accountability for their other actions that they've done against the community. But the word says, let your yay be yay and your nay be nay. They said that they were going to do the DEI, that they're going to support the community and fund programs, and that's what they need to do.
And I always wondered why Target. And I think that all three of you are bringing a deeper perspective of why Target was even chosen to be the target, for lack of better words, for the boycott. And you guys laid the foundation and the groundwork. And now that it has grown and people have become a part of it, and now that we see that, the fast is over, we know that you guys have been boycotting the whole time. Pastor Jamal Bryant brings the Black church involved. Now we hear that they are moving forward with the organizing committee. Have you guys been reached out to be a part of this organizing committee between Brian, Tamika Mallory, and Nina Turner? Have they reached out to you?
Yes. I got a call over the weekend about this organizing committee, and I declined to participate on behalf of the Twin Cities because of what happened the first time around when we thought that we were a part of a national organizing coalition. And, at the end of the day, the work that we started to do in terms of launching this boycott, which was covered by the Associated Press, along with many other publications. We felt that our work was being erased in the grand scheme of things, but we just, stayed in the background because of the fact that the people in the Black community, not only in Minnesota, but around the nation, were engaged, in this boycott, in holding Target accountable, and are still engaged. So we thought that was more important for the culture, for people to have momentum around this, for people to be voting with their dollars, for people to not feel helpless in the midst of all of these attacks by Donald Trump, through his executive orders, through threatening corporations and institutions. So we put all of that first. And when this most recent incident happened, where you see Target, as Monique said, bypassing the local activists who they know are at the forefront of this issue, and you see Target deciding to meet with Al Sharpton, who was not in any way involved in this boycott, at that point, we decided to come forward, and I just shared on my social media how this is another example of misogyny that's happening. It's happening at the corporate level. Excuse me, first starting out with some of the white supremacy that's involved in all of this, that's coming down from, the highest government, in our land, with these attacks on our culture, attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, attacks on the books we read, and on and on. So you have that level of attack that's happening. And then you have these companies like Target willing to abandon their stated values in the midst of this. And then you have them, even though women are the primary purchasers of goods at Target, what you have is Target bypassing Black women who are involved in this effort and going directly to a man who literally had nothing to do with this boycott. So it's some virtue signaling involved. We saw a photo op involved. It just, felt icky to a lot of folks, to witness this happening. And to us in particular, it's very offensive in the sense that, as Monique and Jaylani indicated, we're here, boots on the ground. We borne the brunt of what happened before, during, and after George Floyd was killed. And for Target to be in our community behaving in this way reinforces the whole reason that we launched this boycott against Target in the first place. And so, as Monique was indicating, this is DEI, but it's also deeper than DEI in the sense of us calling out Target's long-standing relationship with local law enforcement agencies and the harm that they have done through their surveillance efforts and training local law enforcement on some of their surveillance techniques. As Monique indicated, helping to fund the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, which during that window of time in which Amy Klobuchar, who is now a United States Senator, who, as Monique indicated, ran for president, during that time when she was the Hennepin County Attorney, we saw a dramatic increase of young Black men being arrested, being charged, and being convicted through the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. And many of those men are behind bars still, declaring that they are innocent, that there was a overzealous use of police force, force in that situation, that there was corruption. We know that the corruption of the Minneapolis Police Department is well documented by the Department of Justice and even by our State Department of Human Rights. And Target played a role in all of that, funding those prosecutions and demanding convictions. And so this is an ugly part of our history that most people aren't aware of. But this has been documented in a multi-part series by Unicorn Riot, which is a national independent journalistic organization that has covered a lot of our protests and that covered the history of Target and their involvement with law enforcement and the disproportionate impacts to Black people in the Twin Cities, but particularly young Black men. So that's our story, why we're involved, why you have 10 weeks of data, even though the the Target fast, I think, lasted for what, 4 to 6 weeks or 5 weeks. You know, as Monique and Jaylani indicated, we've been at this since February 1st. So that's why when you see the reports about 10 plus weeks of foot traffic decline at Target, when you see Target stocks dropping, you know, since the end of January, early February, when you see Target's February numbers, they're going to be dismal in comparison to previous Februaries because of the fact that this boycott began on February 1st. And our community understood the assignment. If you look online, folks have been calling out Target since the end of January, early February.
I mean, I think, Nakima, you add rich context to why Target was chosen, and I think that a lot of the Black America doesn't even understand, you know, the level of depth and the intentionality of why Target was chosen, because of what's happening in Minneapolis, because of how they are funding, you know, police sanctioned violence and oppression against, you know, Black people. I think that is so critical. So I mean, how do you kind of take back or take ownership of a movement that it seems like somebody else is taking and running away with? Or does it
Well,
matter?
I want to address, I just saw one of the comments where someone said, isn't this an example of divide and conquer, you know, not participating in the national coalition? And the reality is that white America, corporate America, they're going to do what they're going to do. Right. And for us, this isn't about divide and conquer. This is about us continuing to be consistent in the fight for freedom, justice, and equality for our people. So when all of this happened regarding the Target fast, we supported that, saying, look, this is a complementary effort. But after the 40 days ends, we want people to know that our boycott is indefinite, right? We didn't set out to do 2 weeks or 40 days or even a year. We said it's indefinite unless and until Target changes course, accounts for the $2 billion, and they need to account, as we're saying, for their role in oppressing people through the criminal justice system here. That's a huge part of all of this. So no, this isn't about divide and conquer for us, because we've been in this for a long time. Our movement started here back in 2014. That's why we were ready when the murder of George Floyd happened, to mobilize people and to do what we needed to do on the ground to make sure that there was some accountability in that situation. And I declined to participate because I've already been down that road. You know, as Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. If I was already with these individuals initially, trying to be a part of a national coalition, and my trust was violated, why would I go back into that same situation? So we encourage them, hey, do what you got to do in Atlanta or wherever. Get the faith community involved. They need to be involved, right? And standing up to this company, and in us using our voices and in fighting back against the fascism and tyranny of the Trump administration. We need all our community involved. We need everybody on the front lines. But what we want to say from Minnesota is we're still here, right? We've been here for many years and we're not going anywhere. It doesn't matter how big our megaphone is. What matters is our hearts being submitted to God, and the fact that we're consistent in doing the work that we do, being 10 toes down in the fight for justice. So whether people understand it or they don't, we're still going to fight for our people.
So they took credit for something you guys started. I heard, and I wanted to get your response to this too, because I think you bring a really good perspective on this. I heard Roland Martin yesterday say that no one should be meeting with Target and cutting what he called side deals, that he was going to call them out for cutting side deals. But it sounds like that's what's happening here, not you guys, because you guys are the originators. But so it sounds to me that everyone coming after you could qualify as someone cutting side deals. What's your response to specifically Roland Martin saying that you know, there's a coalition and it should be a coalition effort only, and anybody else cutting side deals, he was going to call out?
Well, I know he's not talking to us. because we're not cutting any side deals with Target. Knows if they come this way, that we're 10 toes down, just as we have been, consistently over the years. And our people know who we are in our community in Minnesota. And it's Black folks in Minnesota, but it's also white allies who are upset about Target's decision to roll back diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm not yielding to that coalition. I mean, hey, they want to form and do what they do, handle it. But we are going to continue doing what we need to do, being on the ground, because as you said, Neil, Target's headquarters is less than 3 miles from where George Floyd was killed. And we're coming up this year in May on the 5th year memorial of George Floyd being killed. So this is a time right now where preparations are underway to commemorate the life of George Floyd. So they're not talking about us because like we said, we laid all of this out. Our press release was very clear. The language we use, connecting this to George Floyd and why we were boycotting. So our backstory checks out in terms of who we are and what we do. But I want to give Jelani and Monique an opportunity to weigh in as well.
Well, with that, Jelani, before you weigh in, I don't know if it's clear yet. Has there been any communication at all between you guys and Target?
No. And they know that. And then to Nakima's point, they know why they're not communicating with us, because they understand what we say matters and we ain't changing. And we made it very clear at the press conference exactly what the demands are and where we're going to start the conversation at. And we know this. I mean, what Target did was a deep wound to this community in Minnesota that beloves Target and has seen Target as a company, as a model. And all of a sudden, I mean, without even a significant pressure from Trump's administration, they go on and completely dismantle and erase us in the middle of this fight. And so we understand exactly where Target is at. And also there's the DEI impacts greater communities as well, and many of those communities are upset as well. But I want to just double down on this point that Nakima mentioned. They are afraid of us. This boycott has worked so far. They are going to do whatever they're going to do to try to confuse our Black community and our allies. But we are reminding everybody this today. You need to continue this fight. We need to teach these companies a lesson. And if we do that, we will send a strong signal to every company in this country that if you come and cross our community, we are going to come back at you and hurt you where it matters. And I think that is the lesson that we need to do. And we build on the backs of incredible history in this country, specifically the Montgomery boycott and many of the other boycotts that have happened in history. It takes sacrifice. It takes a lot of work. And I think our community has shown, even with so far where we're at right now, that we are hurting Target, and Target is now trying to spin their wheels. But what's interesting is they're also deeply afraid of engaging us because they understand that we are going to invoke their promises, specifically after the murder of George Floyd, because they understand that that's a pain point that the entire country and the entire world felt, and they do not want that connection. So they are trying to figure out a way to really undermine everything that we're doing, but they're not going to work, because the folks who are watching and the many countless allies who have stepped up have made this work, and we are resilient and we're not going to give up. And this 50th year anniversary is just another reminder that we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We have some progress and some things that work, but so many people made promises, not only Target, that have failed to uphold that promise after the murder of George Floyd, and we're going to call those people out as well.
Monique, we want to give you some closing remarks.
I want to make a point of clarification. It somewhat, I think, appears like we were in a coalition and then left. No, this was our vision, and we had birthed it. The press release had gone out, and we're not gatekeeping. Like Nakima freely shared the tactics with these individuals. She freely shared what we were doing and the tactics. We had already birthed that vision. So we weren't in there and then left, right? But this is the work that we are called to do. It's a higher calling. And we do it faithfully. We don't do it for money. We don't do it for prestige. We're not trying to self-promote. We just want to advance the cause of our people, right? So this is work that we have been doing long-term. And there are other organizations and groups that have called multiple boycotts. We support all of that, right? Because we're for a forward movement of the collective. So it's not being about divisive. Our brothers and sisters, that are doing what they're doing with Target, that's okay. But everyone doesn't have to move together, right? We're called to do different things. And when we move well. We are like a well-oiled machine, and we have been doing this for years here in the Twin Cities.
Yeah,
It's great
I
to
think that you
see.
guys add I think you
I'm
guys add
sorry.
such great context in perspective to this movement because it's not just about DEI from this conversation. It's about criminal justice reform. It's about police accountability. And so those layers really matter. And I think it's important for Black America to understand that it's just not about DEI and the work that you guys have intentionally put in to this boycott. And so I just thank you so much for joining us. We would love to have you guys back
But I
on
also
May
wait before
5th.
you do
Well,
that.
I'm not finished, Tracy. I'm going to give it to you. May 5th, we would love to have you guys back because that's the anniversary what you guys are doing surrounding George Floyd, and then to check back in with us to let us know about the Target boycott. And I'll turn it over to Stacy.
Yeah, I was just to add to that. That's good points. It's great to see that you're working with the Black press. Tracy Williams Dillard, the Minnesota spokesman, recorder out there in Minneapolis. That is really important, of course, for a number of reasons, and none the least being the fact that the Black press has always been on the front lines as well. So, and I know Tracy is a soldier, so it's good to know that you guys are working with them.
And that's May 25th. I see that, Nikema. May 25th.
All right.
If,
Well,
if, if you don't mind, I'd like to add to that. I think you just invoked one of our comrades who we lost during the pandemic, Mel Reeves, who has been boots on the ground,
yep.
who would stand with us at the press conference and say his piece and then go and record on it.
And report it. Yep.
So we definitely miss the great Mel Reeves, and absolutely Black press is incredibly important in this work. Thank you for having us today.
Well, thanks for mentioning Mel. Mel was certainly an asset out there, and not just there, but for the Black press as a whole. So, great job, guys. Nikema, Monique, Jaylani. It's been a privilege, and to get, as Neil said, to really get to the bottom of this in a way that I don't think people realize. As Neil kept saying, it's not just about D, E, and I. So there you go. When we fight, we
We
win.
win.
So. Thanks again for joining the Black Presses. Let it be known.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we got that in, the fact that they are working with the Minnesota spokesman recorders. I think that's really important.
Yeah, they do such great work. Nikema Levy, I met her back in 2020 during the protests with George Floyd. And so, and the murder, his murder. And so the work that they do is so important. And we just thought this story was so important to share because it's more than DEI. It is the continuation of what happened when George Floyd was murdered. And who knew that Target was funding, district attorney races and court cases and things like nobody knew these types of things. And I think that it's important and it helps people say, okay, I'm going to continue to double down.
Yep.
So hopefully they'll work everything out with, the other Target boycotts and fasts, and we can come together and make it happen. But I don't think they give a damn.
Yeah, I was going to say it doesn't sound like that's even on their radar. They got work to do, and what they doing in Atlanta and everywhere else. Hey,
right. So be it. And
Yeah.
so we'll have them back on the 25th as we continue to move forward in the aftermath of what tragically happened to George Floyd. I know we're short on time, so I can go through these quickies real quick if you want.
Absolutely.
I think the first one is important. Today is Earth Day. And so the first day of Earth Day was held on April 22nd, 1970. And the purpose of Earth Day is to demonstrate support for environmental protection. And this year's theme is Our Power, Our Planet. I don't know about our power. I think Trump is taking away all the Earth Day power, but it is our planet.
Well,
So
when you
whatever
say
we
he's
can
taking
do.
away, yeah, when you say he's taking away the power of that, I mean, what really the environmental aspects, all the environmental protections is what he's unfortunately doing away with, and that's a shame.
Right, right, right. So do you recycle, Stacy?
Oh yeah, we have to recycle, but I would recycle anyway.
Yeah, I'm struggling. I try, I'm back and forth, but I do try to do what I can for the planet.
Yeah.
All right. And in a couple more headlines, Kendrick Lamar has become a Chanel ambassador, so he just keeps racking in all the good stuff. And he and SZA kicked off the Grand National Tour this weekend, and so it's trending all over social media. And then finally, Diddy has a small court victory. He's been granted access to drafts of Cassie's unpublished memoir, likely to be used to challenge her credibility in the upcoming sex trafficking trial, which kicks
How,
off next month.
how does he know what's in those unpublished memoirs? Those memoirs can really come back to bite you in the court, though. If he's not careful.
Yeah, I think that's why he wants to see it. He wants it in advance. He wants to know.
I obviously he's looking for something, the whole story of their relationship, and not really the whole story. He's looking for the high points of the relationship where she praises him some, and obviously at some point in that book she has to uh mention that why she was in love with him at one point, and that's what he's going to harp on. That's what a defense attorney would harp on, um, with the hopes that everything else won't be too bad.
Mm, yeah. I mean, I think everybody is buying their popcorn and bottles of wine, because
Especially
that
for
is
her. Thanks.
going to be
Es-
a trial to pay attention to.
Well, especially in her case, she's the star witness, no question. And supposedly she's the going to be the first witness. Now, there's a lot of scuttlebutt, as they say, that Jennifer Lopez will be called to testify as well. But regardless of that, Cassie is the government's A1 witness, and I keep thinking and keep looking at these filings, and it just seems that they've thrown everything else at him, but he's really on trial for Cassie. That's the way the evidence points to, because everything else I can't see based on what's been filed. I have to keep saying that because we don't know everything the government has, and we don't know all of what Diddy has in his defense. But
Mhm.
I just can't see so far any evidence to suggest that he committed a crime other than against Cassie.
Mm.
Yeah, right now, that's
That's
all I see
I
is
never thought of it that way, but
yeah,
that's a good point.
that
Yeah.
that's all I'm
Everything is
again,
based around her.
everything. And like I said earlier, I've covered courts, I've covered trials, and I know how to read court documents. And his court documents read as if they were throwing everything out there and they're hoping that something sticks, but they are banking on the jury being so disgusted with what he did to Cassie that they're going to convict him on everything else. So we'll see. We will see.
Well, are your quickies for today?
All right. And so we will we will go right to the newspaper of the day, which is the East Texas Review. We'll get back tomorrow to the Black Card and history. But the East Texas Review newspaper was founded in April 1996 by a group of concerned citizens led by Robert A. Robert A. and later his wife Jocelyn A. To disseminate positive and edifying news to a community that was significantly divided by fear, distrust, and lack of communication. They focus on continuously publishing positive and edifying news about people, places, and business in order to facilitate a positive change in individuals, organizations, groups, and the entire East Texas community and the broader United States. That is the East Texas Review. And you can go to their website and check out more from our newspaper of the day.
Text Texas has so many NNPA or Black Press USA newspapers, so many.
Yeah, they do.
But for all of those Black owned published newspapers, you can go on over to blackpressusa.com. There are tons of stories there, and of course, just anything that is impacting and uplifting the Black experience. It's all at blackpressusa.com.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.